All right, it's another edition of PatternCast Market Analysis, where we talk about various assets that we trade using PatternCast. And today's asset is silver. What do you think of silver?
I view it as just another thing to talk about, but I know that when we talk about it, people get real emotional about silver. Like, if you're not bullish enough or you're not bearish enough, then somehow you're either in bed with banksters or you're not in opposition enough to the banksters. It's more of a mindset that there's always a conspiracy to answer, every problem that we've got. There's always something behind the curtain. And when it comes to silver, yeah, there's stuff behind the curtains. Manipulation occurs. It also occurs in every market. I've done videos where I've talked about helium is manipulated. I've talked about lumber being manipulated, cotton, everything's manipulated. But I think that silver holds a special place for people because they view it as historically used as money. Now, it's also true other things have been used as money over history, but for 5,000 years, silver and gold have been used as money. So I think that that's probably why people are so emotional about it, because they want their money back. And I understand that. I just sometimes feel like when we talk about silver, we either don't talk strongly enough that we love it, or we don't talk strongly enough that we think it's a barbaric relic. And I think both of those sides of the coin, no pun intended, are two polar extremes of something which really is in the middle. It can be used for money. It's got great industrial uses. There are philosophic reasons to like it, and it is manipulated. There's been an attempt since the founding of the nation for bankers to get their claws into the U.S.'s money. And why not? I mean, bankers did it everywhere else around the world. So the easiest way to control the money is to move away from a standard of some sort and then create an artificial standard that you, the banker, control, and you force the population to pay you interest for the right to control. It's all arbitrary. It's all phony. It's terrible. It's really a bad deal. But the bottom line here is that people who look at silver and gold on an emotional level, I think that they can lose a lot of money, which is kind of what we're talking about today. You can lose a lot of money getting emotional. And in 2011, people lost a lot of money buying. And I think, if I can dovetail this conversation now moving forward, I think that people can lose a lot of money selling from these prices lower. So from 30 to 50, you're losing buying. From 15 on down, you're going to lose selling in the long run. And that's kind of where I want to start the conversation here. In terms of silver, the move down today is like 1.5%. I don't think that's a big move. Do you think 1.5% is a big move? Someone mentioned to me they thought it was a big move. Do you think that's big?
No, that's not a big move.
No, I don't think it's big at all. But I do think
5% or a 10% move, then I'd start. That would get my attention.
Yeah, but I just think that people emotional about precious metals, you're always going to make the wrong move. I think the right move is to let prices come in to buy and let them move up to sell.
Silver is such an enigma because it's one of those things. First of all, silver has two primary vectors in terms of its value. It has its monetary vector that we talked about earlier, and it also has an industrial vector, which is very, very significant. And a lot of people try to figure out, well, how much silver is there? What's the supply and demand? And there are so many aspects to that it is so difficult to pin down any one thing that might be the catalyst for silver dropping 1% or 2% or going up 5%. And when you start thinking about the industrial uses of it and the amount of silver compared to other precious metals that are out there used for other industrial purposes, like the platinum group metals, for instance, it would seem that silver should be at a much higher price. So there's something out there that is suppressing the price. Now, is that the manipulation? Is it the banks? Is it that monetary vector? I don't think anybody really knows, and nobody has, at least in my estimation, has come up with the definitive analysis around why silver is priced here. But there is one thing for certain. If you look at the long-term trajectory of silver, it is low on that mean, that long-term mean, the 100-year curve. What do you think?
Well, there is something going on with silver that you don't see happening with gold, and you don't see it happening with platinum. And I would ask people while I say this to verify this by going to AppMex as I talk right now. Go to their main page, and at the top they've got a thing that's like a banner that they've got all their sales and ads and all that on. And you can go like 1, 2, 3 tabs over on that banner across the top. And there's a new release says for every collection, New Zealand Mint commemoratives, and these are colorized silver 1-ounce rounds with Magic the Gathering. Magic the Gathering on the bar of silver. A colorized Magic the Gathering silver bar. Right next to a silver statue of Wonder Woman. Right next to a Donald Duck round and a Tetris video game round.
Right.
All colorized.
Those are what we call the collectibles. They're not investment grade collectibles, but some people want to believe they are.
So what I'm saying is, one of the things that silver's got going against it in the short term, it's always the short term is oversupply. There is not an undersupply of silver. Anytime you have the ability to paint Magic the Gathering cards on silver bars, and anytime you've got video games, Donald Duck and a Wonder Woman in statue form on a pedestal, you got a lot of it. And so in the short term, there's an oversupply.
What about all these people that are claiming that there's an undersupply, that there's less silver above ground than gold, and that it's undervalued? It is the most undervalued commodity in world history.
Well, it can't.
People know.
Well, it can't be if you can get a Donald Duck, Wonder Woman, Tetris coin and statue with Magic the Gathering.
What are they talking about, Don? What's going on here?
That's a really good question. There's a myth about silver and supply that's been going around for a long time. I think Ted Butler is kind of where it started, and it's every year the same thing. There's a shortage of supply, prices rise, and when they do, it's getting tight. But that's just not the case. And by the way, it's also not the case that prices can't move up dramatically with a large supply. I'll give you an example. Milk. When I was a kid, my mom would buy a gallon of milk for $1. I don't know where you live, man, but wherever you live, a gallon of milk is probably $4.
Yeah.
If you get organic, it's like $7 or $8. So there's plenty of cows. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez tells us that every day. There's lots of cows. So we got plenty of cows and plenty of milk. Supply is literally flowing like water, and yet prices on milk are through the roof compared to where they were in the past. So just because you have an oversupply doesn't mean prices can't rise. I just think that people need to put it in perspective. Short-term pricing can't be, high when you can get, again, Wonder Woman, Donald Duck, Tetris, and Magic the Gathering on silver.
Sure. And then there's the monetary vector side where people try to equate it with the other metal money, gold, and looking at its gold-silver ratio. And right now, at least over the past several years, gold has outperformed silver dramatically. And right now, that ratio is at the silver-gold ratio, if I were to put it in the proper parlance. Silver is undervalued compared to gold over the past 10 years. And so for that reason, there's another reason why people think that it should go up.
Yeah, and I did a video, probably in the last month, saying that now's a good time to move out of some gold and move into silver. At 85-1, which is what the ratio is right now, you're getting a much better deal. In fact, to put it in perspective, when gold was at 1900 and silver was at 50, the ratio was only 38-1. So what that means is you could have taken your silver and taken 38 ounces of silver and got an ounce of gold. If you had done that, now you can take your 1 ounce of gold and get 85 ounces of silver. Think about that. So let that soak in for some folks. You could actually be up on your precious metals. Even though prices have gotten hammered, you could have almost 3 times the silver simply by doing what I just said. And that the ratio is real important for people, especially if they don't want to value their precious metals in terms of worthless fiat. No, actually, Ernie, I got to back up. In terms of worthless, bankster-controlled, manipulated paper fiat. If you don't want to, measure your precious metals in that, measure them against each other. And now is historically a good time to move out of gold into silver.
Well, the last time that the ratio was this low or this high, depending on how you look at it, was back in 1994. That's just after my first kid was born. In 92, it was lower. So
you mean when you say it was lower, I think the high from the last generation is like 105 or something. The chart you're looking at, what's it telling you?
Well, it looks like it's around 100. I think back in 91, 92, it did get lower by a bit.
Okay. All right. So in other words, you're not saying, and I'm not saying that this is the best time ever to move out of gold into silver, but historically speaking, there are things you can do at times like this.
Well, there's a lot of things that have changed since then, too. We have the internet, for instance, the advent of the cell phone and other electronics. Electronics and robotics and anything that is technical is using silver in it for electrical contacts and for the creation of dyes and other things. Silver is pervasive in technology and also solar. Silver is huge in solar. The one thing where it lost out, though, is in photography, obviously. Photography's gone. That was a huge consumer. I think solar probably trumps that now. But there is more and more demand on it as we go. But I guess what you're saying is that there is a supply, at least enough supply, to offset all that demand. And nobody seems to recognize this.
Well, when you say nobody, I'm going to give Silver Stacker some credit here because I think that there has been a movement. If you go to silverdoctors.com and you look at a lot of the comments there, silverdoctors.com, if you go back to 2011, every time silver would move down a nickel, this is not a joke, it might move down a nickel and you'd see people saying things like, "Thank you, Blythe Masters," and I'm getting another monster box. That kind of language, that sort of crazy talk has stopped. And now there is a much more sober look at precious metals from silver stackers. So I think that there has been a move in the direction of conservatism in terms of thought, but I want to caution people not to get too negative. It's one thing to go to the realistic side of things and say, well, okay, there is oversupply, and that's why prices are held down in the short term, and just-in-time inventory models, those are all real, and you can get all caught up in that, but then recognize that if silver moves from 15 to 20, that is not going to be, for me personally, that's not when I'm unloading. So let's say we get that move now, and oh my goodness, silver's up 33%. That's not when I'm going to be selling.
Sure.
And I think that people can get, I don't know, what's the word for anti-emotional? Like, you can become too apathetic.
Yeah.
And I would say, look at this in the long-term perspective. And there are three things I would give people. Number one, are the pundits on the street loving silver? April of 2011, Jim Cramer came out and said, you got to be getting some silver, some physical silver. I got a phone call from a friend of mine. He's a guy that most people listening would know. He called me up and said, did you see Cramer today? He's saying that people should be buying silver. And this person told me we might not be at the top today. We weren't, but you got to get out. You can't, if Cramer is saying buy. So right now, the pundits like Jim Cramer, are they piling in? No, they're not. The people around you, they don't care. You can't find 1 in 100 who care about precious metals right now. People don't care. The man on the street, you don't have your gardener and your house cleaner and the guy delivering pizza asking to get paid in silver. That's not happening.
That fever always starts to decrease as the price goes down, and you could see that just a few years back. That fever was very high. That interest in silver was extremely high, and there were all kinds of semi-precious collectibles that were out there. And I don't know if that is still going on nearly as much, but it just doesn't seem like we have that same kind of market, or at least the enthusiasts that are out there. But what about other types of collectibles, investment-grade collectibles, as we go further and further down the line? What about things like, old or rare coins, investment-grade quality coins that have a lot of silver in it, or junk silver? I mean, where does that stand? Is that a good investment? Is that something that someone should consider rather than getting pure bulk?
I started buying silver when I was 30 years old. So that is 21 years ago. There are people that are 21 right now who may just now be getting into precious metals or thinking about it. And they don't have the history that you and I might have. Silver and gold used to be boring. Listen, 30 years ago, it was like if you went to a coin store, it was absolutely like going to a comic book store in about 1975. There was dust everywhere, and the guy behind the counter didn't want to talk to you. The clock on the wall was the only noise you could hear ticking backwards, and if someone walked in and you made eye contact, you kind of felt like you were in a porn store and your pastor or your dad just walked in. So that's coin stores circa 1999, 2000. Coins were not sexy. So, if someone's looking at investments today and you have all these opportunities, and like APMEX is an example of a place you can go, where APMEX calls themselves, they're investments you hold. Anything you buy at APMEX, they're calling an investment. So the Magic the Gathering, the Wonder Woman, the Donald Duck, and the Tetris, they are calling those things investment. So do I think that, Donald Duck, Wonder Woman, and Magic the Gathering and Tetris are investments? I would say no, right?
No, I don't think they're worth any more than melt value, quite frankly. But precious or investment quality or investment grade U.S. coins have steadily gone up. They have not gone through the ups and downs that bulk silver or...
That's fine. No, that's fine. I'm actually, the point I was making is that when you start on the low-hanging fruit, that we don't think Donald Duck and Wonder Woman and Tetris and Magic the Gathering are investment grade anything, but they're sold as investment grade. They're sold as investment. And then, there are so many different investment grade coins out there, I just would have no idea.
Well, I'm a rank amateur numismatist, and I was more of a professional numismatist when I was very, very young. I collected all kinds of coins, but not really the investment quality. It wasn't until maybe the last 20 years that I started buying investment quality, old, rare U.S. coins. And they have gone up on average about 10% a year, consistently.
You just wanted to say the word numismatist.
It's a great word.
If you're looking at something, let me give you the best answer I've got on investing in graded coins. MS70 at the best price for whatever it is you're buying.
Right.
You know what? I picked up some MS70 Silver Eagles the other day, and I went to eBay, and I sorted. I wanted the lowest price I could find, and I got MS70 2017 Eagles, and they are just spectacular. And I got them for $33. That was with shipping.
Well, see, now you're talking about basically what are bullion coins that are called investment quality coins at near gem quality or uncirculated or proof.
Because I'm not an expert, I know MS70, I know NGC, I know the grading company NGC, I know the quality of the work they do, I know that the esteem with which they're held, and if I can find, it's like when you buy real estate, if you can find the nice nicest house on the block for the least amount of money, that's where you want to go. Well,
if you took, for instance, a Morgan silver dollar that was MS65, and then you found one that was MS70, the difference in price, even if it's a relatively rare Morgan, an MS65 might be worth several $1,000s. An MS70, that might be worth $250,000.
Right.
So that's the difference when you start talking about older, rare coins. But when you start talking about bullion coins like like the Silver Eagle, like that's what we were talking about. And I have several of those MS70s or proofs, and they're real nice, but they're not going to see any appreciable rise in value for a long, long, long time. They're not going to have the same kind of value appreciation as a rare U.S. coin like the Morgan silver dollar.
No, I understand that. I mean, so if I'm not comparing a $33 coin that I bought with a $33,000 coin, I'm saying that if I'm going to put my money into these things, though, I'm going to buy MS70 where I can.
It's tough, though, and I'll tell you why. And it really comes down to the number of them that were minted, because there were literally millions and millions of those minted.
Yes, I agree.
And so that's the hard part.
Well, but but hold on. I mean, I what you're saying is that let's say you minted 1 million of these and everyone was MS70 and they were all encapsulated. The value of that is going to be much less than something they minted 1,000 of which only 10 were MS70.
Right.
Okay, and I agree with you about that, but I'm simply telling people that for my money, when I can find MS70 of anything, I'd rather have that than something lower than that. That's all I'm suggesting. And I also tell you, I'm not.
I agree with you too. So,
okay.
But finding the right price, that's the hard thing.
This is why this is not my wheelhouse. Okay, I'm not a coin grading expert. I'm a bullion price movement, inflation adjusted guy.
What I'm thinking is that there's like a gray area. It's this kind of area where you're jumping from true investment quality coins into the bullion that is now considered investment quality. And I don't know where that line is. I just feel a little queasy about that.
Yep.
And while I agree that, buying the best quality coin is great, I'm just wondering in 20 years, am I going to see a real return on that? If I bought a Morgan that was a 70 or even a 63, I know that in the next 10 years, that's going to be worth a lot more. And in 20 years, a lot more than that.
So what you're talking about is there's a term semi-numismatic. And I know a lot of people who are aficionados of coin collecting and real professionals, they'll tell you there is no such thing as semi-numismatic. For those who don't know, that's where someone says there's a value that part of the value is derived from the bullion and part is from it's a really cool coin. So it's semi-numismatic, when in fact what you're talking about has nothing to do with the underlying value of the bullion. If you get a 100-year-old silver dollar that's rare, the value of the silver is inconsequential. That's not what gives it its value. What gives its value is the rarity and the grading of it. That's numismatic value. So
to some degree. There are anomalies, though, in some of those coins. Like some of them might be 90%. Some might, for 1 year or one run of the mint, might have a slightly better quality. So there might be something there. But you're right. In terms of the actual value of the silver,
but
it's probably small compared to the value of the coin.
A $250,000 coin has none of that value derived from the silver underneath it. It's derived from the rarity of the coin. So
that is correct.
Right. Okay. And to your point, that's why silver value can drop to $5, and you can still have a numismatically valued coin that's valued at $1 million, even though the silver premium itself is $1.
Yeah, and I have a subscription with the U.S. Mint. Every year they send me their proof coins, a set of their proof coins, which in fact include real silver quarters, dimes, and half dollars, which they never put into circulation, obviously, because the coins that they put into circulation today are nickel clad. But you can actually get the same quarters and half dollars that you see on the street in silver form, but as proofs. I don't even know that they are considered investment quality. Once you go beyond a certain number of years, they start becoming investment quality. Like before, when they stopped putting silver in some of the coins that were released to the general public,
right,
which would have been around 64 or 1969 in some of the silver dollars. And so if you have proof sets from before then, which I do, those are truly, numismatic, collectible coins that you can get in proof state. You can get them all the way back to 1936.
Okay, but hold on. Like 1969, for example, those 69 sets you can get for like $10. I mean,
yeah, they're not much.
They're not much, right?
But once you go beyond 64 and before that, that's when they start increasing in value dramatically. And depending on the mint set and the number that were minted, especially the ones in the 50s and then in the 40s. And if you can get any of those sets. And some of the more rare ones from different mints, whether it's the Philadelphia mint or the Carson mint or the New Orleans mint, those sets start really going up in value.
And that's why I say this over and over and over again. I'm not an expert in graded coins, and therefore I'm going to get what I believe are nice coins at the best price I can find, at the highest grade I can find. And if in the end it works out, great. And if it doesn't, that's okay. I just, and frankly, I don't know that anybody can really tell you which one is going to be the one. There's so many options out there. If I'm buying an MS-70 Eagle and I got it on eBay and I only paid $33 for it, did I really discover like something magical? I probably didn't. But I will say I'd rather have an MS-70 than an MS-69. I'm just saying. That's all I know.
I'm gonna make the counter argument and say that I would rather have 2 ounces of bullion silver in a bar than that MS-70. Maybe 3.
Okay.
Because
hold on.
The return that I'll get on that in some reasonable amount of time, I think will be much better.
I'll see your 2 ounces of silver in a bar. And I will now add, I don't know. I mean, that's true because, what are the odds that silver goes from, say, 15 where it is now to 30 and double in that time? But in that time, you don't think that my MS-70 Eagle, by the way, it makes it sound like the only silver I've ever bought are these MS-70 Eagles. I'm just holding in my hand. So are you suggesting that if silver goes up to 30, that this MS-70 Eagle will not go to 66, which is, it would have to double?
That's exactly what I'm suggesting.
Okay. Wow. That is counter to the argument most silver salesmen will give you.
Of course, because they make all of their money on the commission or the premium that they put on that coin.
Right. Okay. Wow. So I got duped. All right. Well. Okay. I'll be dumping these on eBay later today, half price if someone wants them.
No, but seriously, that's what I would do. I would find the cheapest possible silver. You know what's the cheapest silver and gold that you can get? You can hold silver and gold parties and pay pennies on the dollar for people's jewelry, and then take that jewelry down to the smelter and have them melt it and then give you the ingots. And I guarantee that you will get your silver and gold at 1/2 to 1/3 of the actual value.
Yeah. Now see, now you're going into territory that my entrepreneur ears are perking up here. I'm like, hey, silver and gold party. Those were actually big in 2010, 2011, and even in 2012. There were a lot of people doing that. In fact, there were, if I remember correctly, there were infomercials where people were selling a system that you could be a part of some system of doing this, right? Am I right about that?
Oh yeah, and there were even stores in the mall too.
How do you know? So someone brings you some gold. I guess there's gold testing.
Yeah, you can have a hardness tester there and a scale and everything, and you can tell. And you can also have chemicals where you could tell. You have to be careful though, particularly with bullion, but with jewelry, it's pretty easy to tell.
Yeah. Okay. You know what? You've got. I know you and I are alike in this way. So you hear that? I hear that, and my mind is now thinking, doggone it, that's a good idea. I'm gonna get out my spreadsheet, my abacus, and my big chief pad and crayons. I'm gonna figure out how to make this happen. I'll spend the next 2 or 3 hours now working up a business plan.
Do you have a license to carry?
A license to carry what? Gold and silver?
No, a gun.
Why would I need that?
Well, if you have one of these parties, you're going to either want that or have somebody that has that to hang out.
And which is why, by the way, I also, when people say that pawn shops are a raw deal, like, wow, man, the pawn shop only offered me 50 cents on the dollar if you're lucky, for my silver and my gold. Well, dude, what business do you own where you have to pack heat and you have to? No, seriously, dude. If I had to have a gun at my side and cameras everywhere and all that, dude. True story. Back in 2009 or 10 or somewhere in there, I wanted to buy some silver and I put an ad on Craigslist. I was buying silver, and it all sounded really neat, right? Good idea. But when I got the first person who messaged me and said they wanted to sell me some silver, it suddenly dawned on me I got to go meet them in public somewhere. Like, I can't just say come over to my house. I'm gonna whip out some cash and be like, all right, here's So it really put a whole sort of layer of difficulty in there. You're kind of out on a limb that way. So I guess if you're having a party and you're advertising it, you'd probably want to have some. Well, you want to pack some heat.
And really, right now is not the best time to hold those parties. What you need is a downturn in the economy when people are looking to unload stuff.
Okay, well, I think we've covered this a lot of different ways. Anything else you want to talk about when it comes to silver? Because I
love silver. It's my favorite metal.
Really?
It is.
I don't know that I love silver.
I love the aesthetic. I love the weight. I love the the sound. I love the wide variety of industrial use and what you can do with it. The fact that it is real money. I mean, all of that stuff.
One final thing I want to tell people listening, that if you want to go to like the Twilight Zone when it comes to precious metals, no pun intended. Have you seen the Twilight Zone episode where the guys rob the vault of all the gold? Have you seen that?
Is it an old one?
It's an old Twilight Zone. Yeah, it's like, I don't know what season.
I'm sure I've seen it many times, but I haven't watched Twilight Zone for.
Yeah. Okay. So wherever you go to watch the Twilight Zone, I would recommend that people go watch the episode where the crooks steal the gold and they put themselves in like a sleep, like a hypersleep or something like that, and then they wake up in the future with all their gold, and it's a pretty neat episode. I think you should go watch it.
Okay, so you're not going to give away the end?
No, I won't. How can you do that? It's the Twilight Zone. You can't do that. It's good. All right. Well, that's it. That's all I have on silver and gold.
I'm silvered out.
Yeah.
Hi-ho, silver.
Hi-ho, silver away. All right. Well, yeah. All right. PatternCast.club. All right, man. Thanks for having me on.
Bye.